The relationship, Sushant Sareen, between India and the US post-Kargil, the interactions between Jaswant Singh, Strobe Talbot, the interactions between then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Bill Clinton, the relationship was on an upswing. But was the civil nuclear deal a game changer?
Clearly, it was, Gaurav, because see, that kind of two things inspired confidence in India as far as the United States was concerned. First one was, of course, Kargil. The role that the Americans finally played. Initially, during Kargil, the Americans leaned on us to go easy on the Pakistani infiltration. But then the boot turned, on the other foot when Mr. Vajpayee dug in his heels. But the second was the civil nuclear deal. And I think that completely transformed the state of relationship, the kind of defense agreements that we've entered into, the kind of foundational agreements that we've entered into, I think can all be traced back to that civil nuclear deal and the confidence that was built between India and the United States as a part of that deal. And to Dr. Manmohan Singh's credit, he was willing to stake his government on that particular deal. He did not consider the civil liability deal that important or that pivotal to stake his government on it. But as far as the civil nuclear deal was concerned, he was willing to stake the government on it. And whatever they had to do to save the government and get the deal through, they did. So I think that will remain his crowning achievement as far as foreign policy is concerned.
And Ambassador Kaju, this agreement then, as Sushant Sareen was also pointing out, paved the way for closer cooperation in defense, trade and technology. Some have described it as a watershed moment between India and the United States of America. But 2010, things started changing. Then that Devyani Khobragade incident. So if it was truly a game changer, why wasn't it taken to its logical conclusion? Or were political compulsions too much within the country?
Once a process begins, it doesn't mean that there won't be hiccups on the way. The Devyani episode was a diplomatic episode. It outraged the nation because a lady officer was involved, and I think the Americans behaved atrociously with her. But in the larger scheme of things, when you look at relations between nations, such episodes, howsoever hurtful they may be, have to be put in a perspective. I think the important thing is that there was the development of mutual confidence in India, between India and the United States after the nuclear deal. And also remember, and this is important, that had it not been for the personal involvement of the American president, yes, I doubt whether India would have got the exemption from the nuclear suppliers group. And that came because at that stage, the Americans were conscious that Dr. Manmohan Singh was leading India onto a path where there would develop a coincidence of interest between them and us, among other things, in the matter relating to China. By the middle of the first decade of this century, it was quite clear to the Americans and to the rest of the world that the emergence of China was unprecedented and unanticipated. It was ironic that the Americans contributed fully to that emergence, but yes, such things happen. So at that stage, they realized that India, if it decided to pursue a certain path, which under Dr. Manmohan Singh, it began to, and then that process was carried forward when when Mr. Narendra Modi took over as Prime Minister. We've seen the fruition of those efforts, beginning with the Jaswant Singh Strobe Talbot talks. Yes. And Sushant has rightly mentioned the Kargil war and how India responded to the Kargil war. Though that journey is now really bearing fruition. I'll just say one more word. The real thing that India had to show in Kargil and people forget this, was that we were a responsible state possessing nuclear weapons.
Yes.
That if we had made a mistake, and there was a mistake, there was an intelligence gap, to use a word, which led to certain consequences that were very deleterious on our on the security of our northern borders. Then India had to pay a price, and we paid that terrible price,
And a
both in
terrible
blood and
price.
treasure. We paid
Absolutely.
a horrible price. But as a responsible state, as a big state, we paid that price. On the other hand, the Pakistanis were shown to be totally adventurous,
And
totally
reckless.
non responsible with the
Yes.
Kargil action.